States. Iran's parliament speaker says if U.S. forces launch a ground invasion, Tehran's troops are ready to, quote, set them on fire. The threat comes as thousands of U.S. troops move into the region, and Pakistan's foreign minister says it will soon host talks between the U.S. and Iran. Chief correspondent Jonathan Hunt is in Tel Aviv with the latest for us. Jonathan.
John, a U.S. ground operation may be on the way, and it could happen very soon. That is doing little, though, to deter Iran from continuing to attack Israel and its Gulf neighbors. A missile slammed into southern Israel near the town of Beersheba today, sending a huge plume of gray smoke over the area. Apparently it was some sort of chemical facility that was hit. Local residents were told to keep their windows shut and their air conditioning off because of the toxic fumes produced as a result of that strike. Meantime, the U.S. continues to hit targets throughout Iran, missile launchers and military manufacturing installations among the most recent targets for U.S. aircraft. As those 2,500 Marines you mentioned arrive aboard the USS Tripoli, they would be probably the spearhead for any sort of U.S. ground operation that President Trump decides to order. But Iranian officials are saying they are ready for whatever the U.S. does next, and they are mocking President Trump's decision-making. Listen here.
At one moment, he speaks of negotiations, and shortly afterward, he decides to manage the war. This unbalanced and deceitful individual has inflicted extensive damage on the people of the United States, Europe, and countries around the world, especially the countries of West Asia.
Israel, meantime, is also focusing on the northern front here, its battle against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu said today that he will expand what he calls a security zone into southern Lebanon. He calls it expanding a security zone. Many others call it an invasion, once again, of Lebanon. John?
Plenty of controversy in the United States about the Iran war. What about in Israel? Is there a consensus there?
I think in this wartime moment in which the Israelis find themselves right now, they back the idea, certainly, of regime change in Iran. They back the idea of crushing Hezbollah in Lebanon, but they don't want this to be open-ended. The Israeli people, John, are absolutely exhausted. They have gone 3 years, of course, 3 years and more, since the attacks of October 7th, with, it seems to many of them, unending war. And I think what they would like to know from Prime Minister Netanyahu is when this will end, how it will end. And it will be interesting as we go forward this year. Netanyahu is under a time crunch for the elections. He has to call elections here by the end of October. It will be interesting then to see how the Israeli people react to what he has done over the last 3 years and how he prosecutes these wars in the coming months. John?
All right, Jonathan Hunt reporting live from Tel Aviv. Jonathan, thank you. For more on this, let's bring in retired Navy Captain Bob Wells. So 3,500 Marines moving into the theater there, Captain Wells. How would you imagine they get used? The president has talked about no boots on the ground. Does this suggest that there will be?
Well, thank you again, John, for having me. Certainly the Tripoli and its associated Marine Expeditionary Unit has the forcible entry capability to conduct any particular options. Obviously, the planners at CENTCOM are focused on reopening the Strait of Hormuz, also the IRGC positions throughout the Persian Gulf, even outside the Persian Gulf, in terms of where they physically are. I would say welcome aboard to the Marines. Welcome aboard to the operating forces, the naval forces that are outside the Persian Gulf, the North Arabian Sea. Quite a bit of firepower, Tomahawk strike firepower, naval gunfire support, armed helicopters, persistent surveillance. Just looking at it before we go into any particular option that the president represents, I really think we're in the third quarter of this particular operation for Epic Fury. And I do think the IRGC is going to lose.
The Strait of Hormuz, obviously the choke point there that has prevented so much of the world's energy, fertilizer, food from getting through. Are the Marines going to be involved, do you think, in making sure that that is reopened?
If that's part of their mission set, obviously you have the gate guard. I've been through there dozens and dozens of times listening to the IRGC in Larak Island or off of Keshem. Notice that the American warships are coming through the Strait of Hormuz. It's got about a 2 nautical mile separation in the international waterway. But what the Iranians have done in the last week is put a new toll gate in between Larak and also Keshem. I would say that based on the planning, they would try to take out those particular toll gates so that Iran does not have the power to say yes to what is transiting the Strait of Hormuz, and things go back to its internationally recognized transit areas. They are formidable, though. They are a force to be reckoned with. So I think the Marine Corps, if they chose a forcible entry option, not only looking at the Strait of Hormuz, but also looking at other places outside the Strait of Hormuz, like Jask, which is another export area for Iran for their oil, or even Karg Island.
What about the uranium? We know the Iranians have been enriching it. Even if it's not on board a missile, it is dangerous. A U.S. Army Special Forces veteran, Jim Hansen, says we have a lot to be concerned about there. Listen.
One of the main things we have to get is the enriched uranium. They either have to give that up or maybe we go get it. It's a hellish concept to think we have to go underground and try to grab that stuff and leave. But that's one of the potential missions for those guys.
Is that, in fact, one of the potential missions for the Marines who are out there on the Iwo Jima?
I think it would be a mission for example, the Special Forces, specifically focusing on that particular mission set, looking at what they achieved with Osama bin Laden, in fact, in Abbottabad, recalling that mission. Also, the 82nd Airborne. The Marines, I think, are focused on the littoral areas of Iran.
Okay, so why send the troops in? Send the troops in. Well, there's not no confirmed reason why they're sending the troops in. But basic... I don't know, basic, I would say common sense would be defending embassies and bases, evacuating American citizens, things like that, things that they can't get down. Also deter attacks from groups like militias and terrorist organizations. So that would be one of the reasons, or some of the reasons why they'll put in ground troops. It's not confirmed on why they put in ground troops, but and that's another thing too. So a lot of people are looking at the war and they're saying, what's the plan? What's the plan? There's no plan. He has no plan. Well, they've already made it very clear that, his approach in going into this war was he doesn't really want to do no talking about his strategies. I think that also impedes on our ability to be effective in prior situations, because we're always talking about what and how we're going to do something online. So we kind of like went away from that. So the one of the reasons, or I'm guessing the ground troops are going in there, is because of course there's probably citizens over there protecting embassies and dealing with and deter different militia groups or whatever like that. So that's cool. We didn't really know why he was going in Venezuela. Okay, they told us it was for the fentanyl and drugs, which I do believe was fentanyl and drugs, but I don't believe that was main priority. We was going in there for the oil, of course. We had no idea how that was going to play out with Cuba. Knowing that they get all their oil from Venezuela. So we already touched on that. Then after that came the shot on Iran. Iran's turned down the Strait of Hormuz. And now Asia is lacking from their oil. Uplifted sanctions. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. Okay, Trump is thinking about ditching NATO as well. We talked about this over the time of the last month. So yeah, it's been a whole lot going on. So we don't want to get wrapped up in, I don't think he has a plan. Whenever we get wrapped up and I don't think he has a plan, it goes bad every single time. Okay, so we got to let the professionals do what they do, and we just got to figure it out and see what happens when it comes through. But they didn't expect what was happening in Venezuela. They didn't know that Venezuela was First of all, like I told you before, when he went into Venezuela, that was him being prepared for them to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And also that was to put Cuba in checkmate. When he went into Venezuela, all of that came out from that. So we don't know what's about to come out from here, but I'm going to tell you, they not in them planning rooms for nothing. You heard? So we got to sit back and be patient on this. But until then, we're going to let this video play and we're going to see what we got.
And looking at trying to support a broader strategy of making sure that we protect the Gulf Cooperation nations. This is the largest, energy seas in history, and we need to basically free up the Strait and the Persian Gulf in order to set the conditions to actually have a new regime in the Persian Gulf for the free transport of oil, helium, fertilizer, et cetera, that are all being produced on the Arab side.
Kharg Island is Iran's largest shipment point for its energy, the energy that comes out of the ground there. Some have speculated that the Marines might go in and essentially seize it, but there's also a large IRGC, Revolutionary Guard force, on the island, is there not?
It's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, sir. It's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Don't worry, I made that mistake as well.
There is, and I think they're employing a porcupine strategy, and it's dangerous. Obviously, we hit some of the targets on Kharg Island.
Actually, I don't know. Is it the Iranian Revolutionary or is it Islamic Revolutionary? It's one of them. You got me confused now.
From the air, but I think there's a school of thought that would argue that we need to basically be creative, continue to allow the Iranian tankers to be berthed there, maybe not let them get underway. They're very vulnerable to their political economy with their oil exports there. But I do think the focus, the critical focus of efforts got to be the Strait of Hormuz. There's other transit passage areas off of the Emirates and Oman that could be used to get to the international waterway.
And I'm going to tell you something. They fighting hard because, if if they go over there and they take over the Strait, I mean, the Strait is Iran's only game plan. It's the only one. Okay, the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council, they not dealing with these people, man. First of all, they two different Muslims at that, so they already got contention. And then Iran went freaking ballistic and went freaking ballistic and just started shooting up their neighbors and whatnot. And of course they did that because they understand the relationship that America have with the GCC. We already went over that. They buy the oil, the petrodollar. They buy the oil in American dollars. They also charge their customers in American dollars as well. In return on that, they invest money in the treasury bonds. Okay, so taking out the GCC, you can see where their frustration lies, but they done already attacked everybody around them. All right, so now even if they did get the nuke, even if they did get their hands on nuclear weapons, right? And let's just say that they took it out on the Middle East. That's still going to impede on the success in cross-border payments because of the people that are waiting for the oil to come out of that area. So, I mean, they had to go in there. They had to go in there. The question is, can Iran win? So Iran was basically saying, listen, we ready for your troops. Now, I don't know. Like, see, here's a problem. This is the issue that I got, right? This is the issue that I got. All right? So, of course, the leader comes online and he says, hey, listen, we ready for you. Come on in. We ready for you. Now, to me, that's an issue. And I'm going to tell you why that's an issue. This can go both ways. First of all, if you're waiting on somebody to make a mistake, you don't tell them. So now I'm starting to think that they bluffing. Maybe not. Who knows? But if I was waiting for the troops to come in and I had a plan to eradicate the troops that were coming in, I wouldn't say nothing. I'll just let them come in. So the fact that he's saying, yeah, come on, we're ready for you, it's almost like he's trying to intimidate Trump to not send the troops in. Or I could be wrong. Maybe there is something bad waiting for him. We're going to have to wait and find out. All right? But before we get on that, we're going to see what the homeboys are talking about. So I don't know.
US Marines and paratroopers are sailing to the Persian Gulf region. What started as a devastating series of airstrikes in Operation Epic Fury is starting to look like the seeds of a ground campaign. The US is setting up for a ground invasion of Iran, and Tehran's regime absolutely isn't ready. The ground invasion will change everything, and what happens next will be unbelievable. The
Now I'm
incoming
trying to figure out what the heck is Iran gonna fight with when them ground troops come in. We didn't already leveled the place. We didn't shot down all their jets. I mean, every damn thing. We don't even know if the country got any more money. So I don't know how they're going to fight off the ground troops, although maybe the terrain might work in their favor. You know, they got a lot of mountains and all that. You know, they know their terrain better than we do, right? But I'm sure we got the professionals that mapped it out. But what exactly are they going to fight with? I mean, they've been bombing them for the last month. There's nothing left. So we think. We'll have to find out.
forces to Iran certainly indicate that a ground invasion is coming. The Telegraph reports that the US has sent around 2,000 soldiers from the elite 82nd Airborne Division to the Gulf, and that they're currently en route and will be ready to step into action if negotiations with Iran break down. They're being joined by similar numbers of US Marines from both the 31st and the 11th Marine Expeditionary Units, or MEUs, the former of which should be arriving in the Persian Gulf region at some point toward the end of March. These are all units that specialise in ground operations, with the Marine Expeditionary Units in particular often being the first to head in when the US launches a ground invasion. They served that role in both Iraq and Afghanistan, and the signs are starting to suggest they may do something similar in Iran as the US amasses a force of more than 6,000 elite soldiers around Tehran. All signs are pointing toward boots being put on the ground. Now that will change everything for Iran, and the regime knows it. That's why we're starting to see some major signs of desperation from Iran's regime mingling with attempts to prepare for the possibility that it will have to deal with US soldiers on its territory sooner rather than later. Karg Island offers the clearest signs of these preparations, along with a clue about one of the 4 ways we believe the US might choose to attack Iran by ground. According to the Jerusalem Post and CNN, Iran's regime is hurriedly trying to fortify Karg Island in anticipation of the US deploying its MEUs and paratroopers on the island. The former reported on March 26th that Iran has been busy laying traps all over the island, and that it has moved both military personnel and air defenses to the rocky little outcrop that plays a crucial role in the Iranian oil lifeline that is helping to keep the country's regime in power. And CNN says much the same thing, while also noting that around 90% of Iran's oil exports run through this one island, so the regime has a very clear desire to protect it. Without Karg, the oil money stops flowing, and the Strait of Hormuz becomes vulnerable. Anti-armor and anti-personnel mines 90% of Iran's oil exports run through this one island, so the regime has a very clear desire to protect it. Without military personnel and air defenses, the regime is hurriedly trying to fortify Karg Island in anticipation of the US deploying its MEUs and paratroopers on the island. The former reported on March 26th that Iran has been busy laying traps all over the island, and that it has moved both military personnel and air defenses to the rocky little outcrop that plays a crucial role in the Iranian oil lifeline that is helping to keep the country's regime in power. And CNN says much the same thing, while also noting that around 90% of Iran's oil exports run through this one island, so the regime has a very clear desire to protect it. Without Karg, the oil money stops flowing, and the Strait of Hormuz becomes vulnerable. Anti-armor and anti-personnel mines are among the traps being laid on the island, CNN reports, with many of these mines reportedly being used to lace the shorelines that a US amphibious landing would inevitably have to negotiate. Iran's challenge with Karg Island is that much of the military infrastructure that already existed on the vital island has been destroyed in US airstrikes. And what we see on the island now is a desperate attempt to bolster a military force that the US claims has already been shattered. On March 13th, the US totally obliterated the island's military facilities, US President Donald Trump claimed.
That's what I'm saying. There's nothing left for them to fight with. They might have They might have a little bit of weaponry in reserve, but ultimately, what we done to them, they don't really have too much to work with. So I don't know how that's going to work out. Can Iran win this war? I don't think
Among
they
what
can, ladies
Iran
and
lost on
gentlemen.
that day were missile storage bunkers and naval mine storage facilities, both of which would be vital in any defense that Iran tries to mount against America's amphibious forces. Air defenses, a helicopter hangar, and an airport control tower were also reportedly targeted in an attack clearly designed to cripple the Iranian military presence on Kharg Island, perhaps ahead of the US putting the boots currently heading toward the Persian Gulf region on the ground on that island. But that's just one possibility. There are others that we'll get to, but Iran's desperation is also showing in how it's approaching negotiations with the US that could bring an end to Operation Epic Fury. It's not clear if these negotiations are even happening, as the US claims that they are, while Iran says that the US is negotiating with itself, followed by its regime claiming that it has no intention of negotiating right now.
So as far as the negotiation goes, Iran was supposed to say that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a kick in the face when you're at war with somebody, and then of course Trump came out and said, and this is, you know, I'm putting this together on the fly. He came out and he says, well, you know, they're looking to come up with a deal, right? But saying that out loud can make them look weak, right? So it's one of them type of situations where you want to keep that on private. You talk trash in public, but then apologize in private type situations. That's if they did that. We don't really know. But I would say that by Trump coming out saying they want to make a deal, kind of like shows them sign of weaknesses. And the thing about showing signs of weakness that everybody else is watching. All other countries are watching. So how this war plays out is going to dictate how countries are going to deal with Iran and the United States further to come. Okay? All right, what happened in Iran when we pulled out Iran and we left all that military stuff right there? This is probably part of the reason why they're conducting and acting the way they're acting right now. Okay? Just like if we would have pulled out of this war, China would have been sitting back like, oh, these guys start strong, but they can't finish. Okay? As far as the war staying open, could be several reasons. Me personally, like I said prior, I think that he's personally trying to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. Because again, only 4% of that oil is going to the Americas. So we're getting less than 4%. All right? Asia, China is dependent on that oil. 80% of that oil is allocated to Asia. So the longer the longer the Strait of Hormuz stays shut down, then you're going to be looking at baby Cuba. China going to turn into Cuba. They ain't going to have no power. And see, what people don't understand with the oil is that when you don't have no power, okay? See, let me tell you how tactical this was. I told you when he went into Venezuela, he shut off all power and all resources to Cuba. Okay, Cuba was getting most of their wealth and their oil and resources from Venezuela. Okay, now Trump then went and took over that. Now Cuba is at a standstill, and I think the goal is to get China to be crippled as well, because see, without that oil, you can't fuel your jets. Without that oil, you can't operate your machinery. Okay, you can't do nothing without that oil. All right, so we got China. China's having its difficulties if they don't figure this out. Okay, because like I said, they're depending on that oil as well. So like I said, you ain't got no oil, man. You ain't got no fighter jets. You ain't got no fighter jets. You know, you ain't got no tanks. You know, no submarines, nothing. You can't fuel up your army without no oil. So at that point, that's kind of worse than just blowing somebody up. That's just straight killing the economy. They don't even have no money to fight. All right, but let's go back into the video.
These appear to be games being played by a regime that is very clearly worried that the US is about to take Operation Epic Fury to a new level, and Trump is clearly frustrated by it all. Taking to his Truth Social platform on March 26th, Trump declared, "The Iranian negotiators are very different and strange. They are begging us to make a deal, which they should be doing since they have been militarily obliterated, with zero chance of comeback. And yet they publicly state that they are only looking at our proposal. Wrong." Trump then added that Iran's regime better get serious soon before it is too late, because once that happens, there is no turning back, and it won't be pretty. Now, Iran can't receive a warning clearer than that, and as much as its regime is trying to act as though it is operating from a position of strength in negotiations that it...
That's exactly what they're doing. These guys are acting like, and I mean, see, here's the crazy part. If Iran does not have a plan for these ground troops, China's going to lose respect for them. Russia's going to lose respect for them. Venezuela, Cuba, everybody's going to lose respect for these people. Because the next time they get into a war, you know what's going to happen? They're going to say, oh, these people are bluffing. They bluffing. They all barking, no bite. So everyone is watching. Because they want to know how to deal with you, and they also want to know what's your record and history when it comes to conflict. Okay? Now, the people that don't submit and keep on going, even if you lose the war, it's how you lose. Because some people might say, okay, fine, we know that we can take them out, but they're going to be a hassle. It's going to be too much of a headache. We don't want to deal with that. Most people are going to look for the quick fight, the fight that they can go in, get in, and be done with it. So they got to be real careful how they handle this war in the public, because they already been annihilated. What they did to the Navy was crazy. Everybody sees this. Now, if the ground troops go into Iran and they do not have a response, they're going to look bad on the world stage, and that's going to create more enemies for them, because now they're going to say to themselves, oh, Iran isn't nothing. Oh, they just be bluffing most of the time. Oh, don't take them seriously. And that's not what you want other powerful countries around you saying about you, because that invites conflict. That invites more conflict. You might as well put an RIP shirt on your back. All right, let's continue.
Claims aren't even happening. The fortification of Karg Island is the telltale sign that it is very worried about what the US is sending its way right now. Over 6,000 Marines and paratroopers are coming. But what might happen next could catch everybody, especially Iran's regime, completely off guard. Karg Island may not be the target for a ground invasion at all. In fact, attacking that island is only one of 4 potential approaches that the US could take as boots on the ground start to seem inevitable. The first scenario we're going to cover skips Karg Island altogether. America's plan might be to deal with Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, rather than to weaken the regime with an assault on its oil facilities on Karg Island. And to pull that off, the US would have to focus on the coastal regions in the strait, along with an entirely different island that is perhaps as strategically important to Iran as Karg Island, but for a different reason: enabling its Hormuz blockade. If this is indeed the plan, there are good reasons why the US would want to execute on it. Iran's Hormuz blockade has essentially closed a waterway through which about 20% of the world's oil, much of it from Gulf countries that aren't allied with Iran, flows. Iran is believed to have mined the shipping lanes established in that strait.
Gulf countries, like I said, those are that's the GCC, the Gulf Cooperation Council. Those are the individuals that we made the petrodollar deal with. It's the reason why our dollars are so, the reason why the American dollar went as far as it did today. So you got to keep in mind of those Gulf countries. Those Gulf countries, they have reinvest that money in the treasury bonds. That's why this is a major reason why we all have all the luxuries that we have over here today. It was a great deal, great deal. So keep that in mind. The Gulf countries. Those are a different set of Muslims. They don't get along anyway. I told you, their relationship is already contentious. So add mistake upon mistake. You wonder why they said Iran was bombing their neighbors. Okay? So not only you got 2 different Muslims, and the Gulf state Muslims are allies to America. I'm talking about big allies. Once you dive into that, you're going to see it was probably one of the most genius partnerships we probably ever did. Yep. Look up Nixon, the Nixon shock. Explain all about it.
And its blockade has resulted in oil prices jumping up to around $100 per barrel. Now, key to this blockade is the asymmetric approach that Iran has taken. Iran isn't sending warships into the Strait of Hormuz. They would be easy targets for America's overwhelming air power. Instead, Iran is using a combination of drones, anti-ship missiles, and fast boats to make crossing the Strait of Hormuz a very dangerous prospect for any merchant ship that would typically have used the waterway. And this is where the US ground forces come into play. Iran is able to exercise so much control in the Strait of Hormuz because its coast runs the entire 100-mile length of the waterway. And along that coast are hidden missile launch sites and makeshift ports that enable Iran's asymmetric approach. So what we could see from the US is the landing of its Marines, or perhaps airdrops of paratroopers who are tasked with taking out or holding key military nodes on the Strait of Hormuz coast, thus taking away Iran's ability to use those nodes in its blockade. And then comes the island that we mentioned earlier. Now, Keshem is an island that overlooks the Strait of Hormuz. It's the largest of the many islands that are in the Persian Gulf region, though at about 130 kilometers, or around 80.7 miles long, it's certainly vulnerable to a ground campaign. Now, you might wonder why the US would even bother though, given that Keshem is more known for its lush foliage and wildlife, which is why Iran applied for it to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in 2007. But behind the popular tourist destination lurks secrets that Iran doesn't want anybody to know about. Now, according to The Telegraph, hidden deep beneath the salt caves and mangrove forests that have for so long made Keshem a tourist hotspot is an underground missile city where Iran has stockpiled weapons that include the types of anti-ship munitions it has been using to target merchant ships in the Strait of Hormuz. And some of the tunnels in this missile city go as deep as 1,600 feet. So Iran's weapons are hiding away on an island that is perfectly positioned to aid in the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And for the US, a ground operation on that island would be a huge help when it comes to solving the Hormuz problem. Preceded by airstrikes, the 82nd Airborne Division could land paratroopers on Keshem.
I think they should take Karg Island. I think that'd be the way to go. They should run up in there, take control of the island. Okay, now, after they do that, then we can dictate, we can take control of all that. That's what they should do. I don't see why they wouldn't go into Karg Island. I don't see why. Especially after this situation. Like, we already got it. We might as well just go in there. We got to figure out what's on the ground, though.
They would seize military nodes and raid the tunnel network that Iran has built under the island. Combine that with MEU assaults against coastal military nodes, along with A-10 strafing runs over the Strait of Hormuz itself, and the US may have a military answer to the Hormuz problem. So that's one potential approach in terms of what comes next when America's ground forces arrive in the Persian Gulf region. But the next is a little more nebulous and certainly doesn't have the sort of direct route to victory that we see in this first strategy. But before we get to that, this is a quick reminder that you're watching The Military Show. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to hit that button. So, second on the list of possibilities is that the US starts deploying special forces operatives for targeted missions inside Iran, which could extend to the destruction of military nodes or even the capturing of key personnel. And that's according to Ehud Eilam, who is a former official in the Israeli Ministry of Defense. Though Eilam notes that securing the Strait of Hormuz seems like the most logical step for the US. They may come and capture a certain objective, destroy some Iranian radar or some Iranian facility, take some generals into captivity. Now, the difference in this approach would be that the US would be focused on further degrading Iran's military capabilities, rather than attempting to capture and hold positions. Small operations teams could certainly play a role here. And on the leadership extraction point, we've seen the US pull off those kinds of operations in the very recent past. It was only in January that American special forces took Venezuela's former president, Nicolas Maduro, into custody with an extraction operation that penetrated deep into the heart of Caracas. So, the US has the capabilities to capture leaders. Now, whether the MEUs and paratroopers it's sending to Iran do is another question. Neither type of unit is designed for that purpose, though paratroopers could indeed help with degrading military nodes, perhaps in preparation for follow-on airstrikes. You also have to consider how useful the extraction of any of Iran's leaders would be at this point. Operation Epic Fury and Operation Roaring Lion already took out former
The Earth is round.
Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei during the first day of the war with Iran, and dozens more military officials and political figures have been eliminated in the days since. Now, perhaps an argument could be made that extracting an Iranian leader, such as Ali Khamenei's son and new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, could give the US some leverage in negotiations. But it seems just as likely that Iran will continue on with a fractured...
Yeah, sometimes the U.S. troops aren't there to fight. They're there to make sure the war doesn't go any further. You know, you kind of like have that stability when you got troops on the ground. So it depends on which way, on how they want to go. Depends on which way they want to proceed with this situation, right?
Leadership, just as it has been throughout Operation Epic Fury. Now, some isolated strikes against military nodes inside Iran are a possibility. Extracting leaders, perhaps less so, especially with the types of forces that the US is sending to the Persian Gulf region. And that brings us to the third option, which in turn brings us back to Karg Island. Now, we've already touched on the benefits of putting boots on the ground in Karg Island. It's an island, for starters, which is perfect territory for MEUs and can be targeted by paratroopers who are dropped into key positions on Karg. Plus, there's the 90% of Iran's oil exports issue. If the US can take control of the island's oil facilities, it will choke Iran's economy, which in turn gives
That's what I just said, and that's what they need to do. They need to go get Carg Island. They need control over that whole thing. Okay? Once they lock that thing down, they need control over that whole thing. That's what they need. That will destroy their economy, as if though the economy isn't destroyed enough. Mind you, they've been bombing them for a month. Okay? All of their weaponry, all of their military defense, everything is down. Everything. All right? And once we take over the oil, whatever weapons or fuel, whatever weapons they have left, they're not going to be able to use them without that oil, without that fuel. All right? So I think that's the way to go.
leverage that can be used to force the lifting of the Strait of Hormuz blockade. Or it'll just bankrupt the Iranian regime, forcing capitulation. Either option would be fine for the US. Now, an invasion of Carg Island is also very much possible. Former CENTCOM commander Joseph Fotel tells the Warzone. I would imagine on a little island like Carg, a battalion-sized force of Marines or soldiers could probably do that. So you're probably looking at 800 to 1,000 troops kind of size, maybe a little bit smaller, probably not much larger than that, Votel claims. Again, this is very much MEU territory, and if Votel is correct, the US wouldn't even need the full force of the 2 MEUs that it's sending to Iran to take Carg Island. However, taking Carg Island isn't the issue. The real problem is this. Holding on to that island that is just 20 miles or so from the Iranian coast and would be a sitting duck for missile launchers and other types of attacks from the Iranian mainland. The Atlantic points out that this proximity to Iran, combined with the fact that the nearest friendly base is about 140 miles away, causes issues. It could put America's ground forces in a position where they're trying to hold Carg Island while they're constantly under attack and dealing with resupply missions that would inherently carry a lot of risk. Drones and missiles would fly constantly, and logistical support would be difficult for the US to provide as quickly as needed. Still, these are problems that can be solved, especially if the US forms a blockade around the island and transports enough air defenses to secure it as best as possible against the Iranian response. If America manages that, the juice could be worth the squeeze, as Iran's regime won't survive for very long, and the same goes for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, if it doesn't have access to the money generated by oil exports. Though Carg Island seems like the clearest of the 3 options, based on the base is about 140 miles away, causes issues.
Because I'm glad they brought that up. That means I'm not crazy. That's obvious. That's the obvious route to go is to take over Carg Island. Yup. Yep. That is the best way to go. Carg Island. Fuck out. Yep.
Could put America's ground forces in a position where they're trying to hold Carg Island while they're constantly under attack and dealing with resupply missions that would inherently carry a lot of risk. Drones and missiles would fly constantly, and logistical support would be difficult for the US to provide as quickly as needed. Still, these are problems that can be solved, especially if the US forms a blockade around the island and transports enough air defenses to secure it as best as possible.
And for y'all that don't know, Carg Island, that's basically the heart of Iran's oil production. That's the heart of Iran's oil industry. So if they can take over Carg Island, that means that they can basically take over Iran's economy. They'd already destroyed everything else. I don't see what but this guy's breaking it down. They're doing a good time. They're doing a good job breaking this down. Kind of like showing you the pros and cons on how or what the ground troops should do. We don't really know what they're going to do because they're not letting out any information, which I agree with. Because if you're going to invade a country and you're going to go to war with a country, it doesn't suffice to go on TV and tell everybody how you're going to do it and why you're going to do it so they can be prepared when you do it. It just doesn't make sense. So don't do it.
Possible against the Iranian response. If America manages that, the juice could be worth the squeeze, as Iran's regime won't survive for very long, and the same goes for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, if it doesn't have access to the money generated by oil exports. Though Carg Island seems like the clearest of the 3 options, based on the fact that the US has already hit its military facilities and has threatened to strike again, there is a 4th option: entering Iran and taking its uranium. Now, of the 4 options, this would be the most difficult, as it involves sending special forces deep.
I was just about to say, that would be, whew. I know we can do it, but I'm going with Carg Island. I think we should go that route. Okay, after we take Carg Island and get the oil, then we can go get the uranium and all that. Then we can go and do all that extra stuff. Okay, but you don't want to have them access to making deals or making money so they can make more money to buy more weapons to whatever. We don't want all that. We want to shut down the economy, period. Especially if they talk about nuking people and stuff. No. We do not want to do that. No, thank you, sir.
Into Iran to essentially take over the underground bunkers where Iran's enriched uranium is kept. That is far more than a destruction or extraction mission. The US would need to have enough soldiers in play to not only take the uranium sites, but to hold them against the inevitable Iranian counterattacks. As Votel points out, sites like Isfahan and Natanz are hundreds of miles inland.
And let me tell you something, when Carg Island stops working, that affects their economy feels that immediately. Okay, you're talking about 85 to 95% of oil being produced through there. All right. So they take over Carg Island. That's listen, their economy will feel the hit immediately. It won't happen a week later, a month later. It will happen immediately. That's how powerful that place is. That's the centerpiece of all their oil production.
Largely in open plain areas, which provide practically no terrain protection. A sizable force of anywhere between 1,000 and 4,000 troops would be needed to secure this kind of site long enough for the enriched uranium to be extracted. And the US would also need engineers and specialists who can conduct this extraction safely.
Nah, we don't got time for all that. We need to go get Carg Island first, then we can come. Then we can do a detour and we can come grab that. We can do that, okay? All right. But then again, thing with Carg Island, man, they might just go suicidal and just blow the whole damn island up. Who knows? Who knows how this will work out? This is crazy.
Much like with the targeting of Iran's leaders, questions have to be asked about whether MEUs and paratroopers are built for this kinds of operations. They seem more like the preserve of Delta Force or the Navy SEALs, perhaps with support from MEUs and paratroopers. But who knows? Those sorts of special forces might already be on their way, and the US simply isn't telling anybody. What has been publicised so far could be for force projection, while secretive special forces units could also be en route to conduct the types of missions that the Marines and paratroopers that we know are heading to don't do. Now, if this is the route that the US takes, the big risks that come with it could also offer some big rewards. Iran's nuclear weapons program was a huge trigger for Operation Epic Fury. Though Iran isn't believed to have nuclear weapons capabilities right now, it's clearly working to put itself in a position where it could build a basic nuke. And that much is clear from the sheer size of the stockpile of enriched uranium that is in the country. According to the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation, that stockpile amounts to 440.9 kilograms, or about 972 pounds of uranium that's been enriched up to 60% of the U-235 isotope.
That's going to take too much time. We should just hit Carg Island, take the oil, or seize Carg Island, take over the economy. Again, they will feel that immediately. Making that detour for the uranium, nobody's trying to do that right now. That'll take too long. They got to get specialists out there. They got to dig. And then they also need to fund some of the troops to figure out there's no damn coups going on. So I don't agree with that. They need to go get Carg Island first. You shut down the oil supply. They can't fuel their damn jets. They're going to be sitting just like Cuba. Okay, they're not going to be able to fuel up their tankers, their submarines. They can't do nothing without that oil. So I think the best way to go is to attack Carg Island with the ground troops. I'd rather the ground troops not be there. But since they are going to be there, it will suffice for them to hit the island first. That's the centerpiece of the economy. They will feel that immediately.
This is the explosive isotope that makes the types of nukes Iran would want to build possible. And worse yet, the centre says Iran has already completed 99% of the work it needs to do to enrich its uranium further to hit the 90% of U-235 needed to build a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, and they're probably even closer than that, because let me tell you, their ballistic program. Okay, last week, they shot a damn missile and it hit Europe. 4,000 kilometers. So Europe is not out of range. So I also postulated the idea that, hey, if they lying about their ballistic program, then, who's to say they're not lying about their nuclear weapons, right? Which, I get it, I understand. It's the same reason why we don't know why the ground troops are going there. You go into war and you invade a country, it doesn't suffice to tell them that you're coming through the front door or spew all your plans out on TV while the whole world is watching. You don't want the enemy waiting for you, of course, right? So I get it. They didn't tell us about their ballistic program. Fine. We thought they'd only reach up to 1,300 kilometers. The shit went to 4,000. Now, we get it. We understand. But that's the reason why we're going in there. Because we have some people saying that we shouldn't have to go in there. But if they get a nuke, two things going to happen if they get that nuke. I don't even know which one is worse. Two things going to happen if they get the nuke. Option number one, they're going to bomb. They're going to hit off a piece of the U.S. Okay? That's option number one. Mind you, these are people that scream death to America, okay? They will blow this joint up in the name of Allah. All right? Respect. Second thing they're going to do is they're going to attack the Gulf countries. All right? If they attack the Gulf countries, they're going to immediately hit the dollar because, remind you, the Gulf countries, they invest all that money into the treasury bonds. Okay? Check out the Nixon shock. It's the reason why your dollar's potent today. Well, it's losing potency, but this is why the dollar was so potent for all this time. So those are two things that's going to happen. Either way, it's a bad look. Now, these people might be suicidal. We don't know how deep their power goes. Because you drop a nuke on the damn Middle East, I mean, all that's gone. Their whole economy, everything. I mean, I'm sure Carg Island going to be in the midst of that blast. We don't know what's going on here. Only thing we know is that these people on some revolutionary type stuff, and I'm sure they have every reason to. It's not my point to judge, but it's a graceful blessing that we went in there because they already lied about their ballistic missiles. They probably was much closer to getting a nuclear bomb than we thought they were. All right. Every other president, Obama said we had to go into Iran. Bill Clinton said we had to go into Iran. George Bush had to go into Iran. Well, now we had a president that finally did what everybody else was scared to do. All right. Everybody's too busy being liked. And kind of I don't blame them too, because Iran is one of those type people where you can beat them, but do you really feel like going through the hassle of dealing with people that'll bomb everything around you in the name of their faith? So that's a different opponent right there. Not saying you can't beat them, but most of the times when they go on the war, people looking for an in and out. They not really trying to drag this thing on. Now again, like I told you, I think this is a blessing in our favor that the Strait of Hormuz is staying closed. Because the longer the Strait of Hormuz stays closed, the longer it takes for Asia to get their oil. Or the bulk of their oil. China don't have no oil. China can't fuel their jets. China can't fight. They ain't got no oil. They can't do it. All right. And as far as NATO go, we done already discarded ourselves from NATO. So anyway, let's continue with the video.
In other words, Iran says that it doesn't have a nuke and it may be telling the truth, but it could build one.
Maybe telling the truth. That's a hell of a maybe right there. That's a hell of a maybe.
And that's a problem that the US might look to solve by sending soldiers into Iran to extract as much of its enriched uranium as possible. This isn't a one-day operation for the US, though. It would need several days to package and extract Iran's uranium, and with that time comes the need to defend its troops as they do their work. Now, any of the four scenarios that we've presented here would change everything for Iran and Operation Epic Fury. That would represent the type of escalation.
And them troops about to get busy, boy. They about to get busy. They are about to get busy. They are about to get busy.
That Iran's regime never expected, with each also being designed to strip Iran of key pieces of leverage it wants to use to keep its...
Iran got the whole goddamn United States about to come down on them, bro. This is crazy. And they over and it's funny because they're over there they're over there talking about, yeah, we ready for you. So Iran is basically telling Trump, listen, fool, bring your troops over here. We ready for you. Bring them over here. We ready for you. We waiting for them to walk through the door. Now, the problem with that is anytime you go into war with a country or anybody, it could be a one-on-one fight. Anytime you saying, yeah, we ready for you. See, now I have to question. Because if I was the president and you was invading me and I had to drop on you, I wouldn't even tell you. I just let you come over there. So now I'm starting to think maybe it's an intimidation factor. Okay? Iran ain't got no more weapons. They don't, like I said, everything's depleted. So I don't know if he's pretending. I don't know if he's trying to intimidate. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do have a plan. Maybe they walking into a trap. I don't think so, though. I think that if they was walking into a trap, he would have never said nothing. Because that's what happens. If you're going to come into my country uninvited on the invasion and I got a trap for you, I'm not going to tell you that it's a trap. Matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, please don't come. Make you come anyway. then get you. I'm not going to tell you, yeah, we waiting for you. We got a surprise for you. You don't tell somebody that's coming to invade you. So what, you want them to come over there and be prepared? So that lets me know that I think that this is a bluff. I think that they're just trying to intimidate. But hey, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe they really got something for their asses. I don't know. This is very bad, though. This is very, very bad. I hope everybody gets home to their families. Yep.
Alive in this fight. Losing Kharg Island means no more oil money. The US putting boots on the ground in the Strait of Hormuz and Keshem would be a problem for Iran's blockade strategy. If leaders are extracted, that gives the US more negotiating power. And the loss of its enriched uranium, which would likely be accompanied by the controlled destruction of centrifuges and other vital equipment, would cripple Iran's nuclear plans. All could push Iran closer to regime change too. Now, speaking to CBN News, former deputy commander of Israel's Sayeret Matkal,
whatever regime change is going to come. Once they seize Kharg Island, it's going to come. They ain't got no choice.
Special Forces Unit, Doron Kempel, claims that there are likely generals in the IRGC who are frustrated and willing to defect. And he adds that both the US and Israel will have operatives on the ground working under deep cover to push these defections along. At the decisive moment, when the IRGC's collapse is imminent, these generals could rally their forces, link up with Mossad and CIA operatives, and ignite a full-scale internal revolution from within, Kempel tells CBN News. Perhaps US boots on the ground could provide that decisive moment. Now, if it does, Iran's regime won't be losing a key.
See what they talking about? You can have people go up in there. You can have people go in there and just cause confusion within. All right, citizens already getting weary. You know, you got people waking up and got damn missiles flying over everybody's head, shit getting bombed, no power going in and out. You don't know if missiles going to hit you. Ain't nobody trying to put up with that. It's only but so much. So if you can plant some spies in there, they can create a revolution from within. And that's probably what they're going to do. United States are known for planting people inside of organizations, getting them to turn on themselves. They are known for doing that. So they got to be careful of that too. They got to be very careful of that.
Key piece of leverage.
America's hitting them so many different ways. They're not even telling us the whole story on the news, y'all. I'm trying to tell you. A lot of the news, well, of course, a lot of the news got pros and its cons, right? Everybody, you got two sides, you got three sides to a story. My side, your side, and the truth, right? So you got some parts on the news where they're making it seem like America's losing this war, okay? And the reason why they have people thinking America is losing this war because they want to have a reason to pull these people out of war. Which, you know, I get it because I didn't sign up for war either. I'm not with the war thing. It's messing up the economy. It's messing up the markets and all that. But nonetheless, I don't want to get hit by a goddamn nuke either. So, you know, shouts out to the military. But they're painting this picture like America's losing this war. I don't even know how anybody can get to that unless you're not really doing the research. Because we done basically leveled that damn place and now they're putting ground troops on the ground. All right, so we got to stay tuned and see what's going to happen.
No matter which of these options the US chooses, it would also be primed to lose the very seat of power that it has held for decades. And what seems almost certain is that the largest US ground invasion in Iran's history is about to go down, and it could change everything. We've mentioned
largest ground invasion. I mean that they didn't even have they're not even prepared for what's about to happen. They didn't have no goddamn no virtual training for this or nothing. This shit is about to get real. It's already gotten real. Where's my buddy at, man? I gotta get my buddy on here. He knows how to do.
From getting through, are the Marines going to be involved?
Yeah, they're gonna send them in first, buddy. They're gonna send the Marines in first. America about to
welcome in everyone. I hope you guys are doing great.
America's about to hit them with everything they got. Can you imagine America coming down on you like this? Can you imagine? Can you imagine America coming down on you like this? This is insane. Wow.
Wherever you're watching from today, I'm filming this on March 30th, and we have more massive strikes underway as President Donald Trump appears to be pursuing total and complete escalation against the Iranian regime as it appears no ceasefire deal is even close to being accomplished. Plus, we have a lot of other updates to get into about what is happening on the ground. You're going to hear it from me. This is the truth about what is happening, what other people out there will not tell you. Before we get into it, as always, please make sure to like and subscribe. It's totally free. Costs you guys nothing at all. Huge, huge boost to the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Get active in the comments. How do you think this war will end? Will U.S. ground troops, which we have more updates on them too, enter the country of Iran? Let me know in the comments below. Hit the notification bell. All notifications turned on. You won't miss a thing. And then bottom of the screen, Instagram, David_Hookstead, XD_Hookstead. That's where you can find me on social media. My DMs are wide open. Send me any tips you got. Now, let's get into it. So I want to put this up on the screen. This is happening right now. In Iran is the United States is ramping up the bombing efforts. You can tell the bombs that are being dropped by heavy U.S. strategic bombers. That would be the B-2, the B-52, or the B-1. All of those are the options. Listen to the sound of these explosions. Absolutely insane.
Mashallah.
They come. See some flashes in the sky. Smoke. That sounds like 3 that were dropped right on top of each other. You see smoke right there coming up as the bombing campaign efforts continue to be ramped up around the clock. Let's listen to the explosion right at the start again. Listen to the sound and power of the bombs they're dropping. Unbelievable footage, unbelievable power that is being unleashed. These are airstrikes tonight in Shiraz, Iran. Right there. You see the flash of the light. Clean bomb impact on target. It's honestly a bit surreal to watch this. Now, more footage out of Tehran as the bombing campaign continues. Smoke everywhere. I'm going to pause it right there. There is so much heavy smoke in the air at the location of the bombing sites that you can hardly see what is on the other side of that smoke. Really,
you can see they being civil. They could just light the whole place up, but they're not doing that. They're not doing that. They could literally just level all of this right here if they wanted to. All of this if they wanted to. They're not doing that. Looks like they just trying to stop that damn nuke from happening and keep the Strait of Hormuz shut down. Yep.
Showing you how much ordnance they are bringing. As look, sometimes you got to escalate to de-escalate. The Iranians don't want a ceasefire deal.
Agree. You got to escalate to de-escalate sometimes, because sometimes people don't. Humans only understand violence and aggression. It would be nice if people could just talk, but for some reason, human beings don't learn that way. People are not just going to leave you alone. Most people don't have a heart-to-heart moment to leave you alone. Most people that are messing with you, you got to back them up off you aggressively, or they'll just keep coming. So yeah, I do agree. You got to escalate in order to de-escalate. You gotta hit somebody so damn hard that they don't even want to respond back. That's what you have to do. You can't just tap them on the shoulder. You can't just smack them around a few times. You got to hit them so hard that it crushes their spirit that they don't even want to retaliate no more. That's how you win. Whether it's a personal fight or a damn war that they fighting against, you never tolerate disrespect from nobody. Never. Because the world is watching. Everybody's watching this war right now. Everybody wants to know. And if Iran doesn't put up a good fight, or if they roll over too easily, America too, then what that's going to do is that's going to signal in future times that, oh, you know what, we can go ahead and take on Iran because, they gave up last time. They're not going to go the distance. Or United States gave up. They're not going to go the distance. So, yes, you have to escalate in order to de-escalate. Sometimes you got to turn this shit upside down to get people's attention. Because if you don't turn this shit upside down, they're going to keep going. Human beings don't just stop on their own. You have to force them to stop. All right? That's what that happens right there. There's no peace talks. All of those are fairy tales. You told these people stop building a nuclear bomb. They still building one. Okay? These people, you think they just want to stop doing it? No. You got to escalate in order to de-escalate. You got to turn that shit upside down to the point where people say, you know what, I don't even want to play with you no more. Good. That's exactly what I want. I'm sorry it had to come to this because I don't want to be played with either. So, yeah, I agree with that 100%.
They want the war to continue. The United States wants this war over as quickly as possible with a complete and total victory. We are going to get into some comments towards the end of the video from Caroline Leavitt about that. So if they're not going to reach a deal, what do? You turn up the amount of pressure. You turn up the bombings. That is what we are seeing here. This is escalation to de-escalate. Make them bend the knee. Show them you mean business. And right here, more footage out of Tehran. You could hear the sounds of the bombs going. You can hear sirens going off. And then right here, another look. The ground is on fire and burning right there due to the impact of the U.S. bombs that are smashing targets across Iran. And then right here, this is the Ekbatan neighborhood near the airport. So remember, we've been targeting the airport hard. Here you can see dark black smoke rising into the sky following more massive U.S. strikes that are unfolding at this hour. And then right here, this is in western Tehran. You can see yet again the white smoke, this time up in the air following a U.S. bomb hitting its target, causing immense damage and immense destruction. More images out of Tehran right there, more dark, heavy black smoke. And then right here, we're going to get into this now. This is General Mohammad Hossein Shahkami, a senior commander of the IRGC. Feels like every time we're doing a video now, we have another leader who has been killed. And now General Mohammad Hossein Shahkami, another.
Like, damn, how many leaders do they have? I mean, they killing like a damn leader like every week. It's like they won't stop. It's interesting. Very interesting. Like, it's not funny though. Please forgive me. No, but they literally have leaders just popping out of no goddamn way. This is insane. The hell are they doing?
Senior Iranian leader has been killed. Right now, the life expectancy for senior IRGC officials,
Look, man, that's crazy. That's crazy. Human beings don't have thinking power. I'd have saw what happened to the first 12 leaders and I'd have been out. Like, I mean, come on, that's just common sense. Yo, let me tell you something. The lowest form of learning is having to go through something. Like, the highest form of learning is you can see what other people go through and say, damn, I'm not going to do that. That's a higher form of learning. A low primitive form of learning is you got to go through it yourself in order to figure it out. That means that you know the stove is hot, but you got to put your hand on the stove just to verify that it's hot. That's a low IQ way of learning. They done killed about 24 leaders. If I was one of their leaders, after the 12th person got killed, I'd have been like, this ain't going to work. This not going to work. I'm not going to be 13. That's how my mind works. I don't have to walk through something to know it's bad. I can just see what's happening to everybody else. If I was one of Iranians' leader and 12 of them got killed, I'd have been out. Actually, honestly, I'm being conservative here. I'd have left before 12. The first 5 that got knocked off, I would have been out. But they're still there getting killed. I don't know what they expect. Poor guy. Let's move forward.
Government officials, I would not say is very, very high. We are getting these people every single day. We killed some earlier today. Now we're getting confirmation that this guy's dead. Just yesterday, 6 other senior leaders were killed in the airstrike. So clearly the airstrikes are having a significant impact on the leadership. And then right here, it says Israel is pivoted to striking Iranian economic targets as it aims to create the conditions for the Iranian regime to fall, according to the Times of Israel. So Israel, now keep in mind, we have not blown up much of the electric infrastructure. We haven't really gone on after their oil facilities that hard.
That's what I'm saying. We still being very lenient with this whole situation. We didn't really go full total chaos yet.
Infrastructure that we have essentially crippled, taken completely offline, is their steel manufacturing. So we have gotten rid of their ability. We blew up their 3 biggest steel plants, including one steel plant that was 50% of the country's steel production. So we are stopping them from having the ability to rebuild whenever this is over. But now they're reporting that Israel's plan is to hit economic targets. What does that mean? Now you're going to start seeing them going after the electrical grid real hard. You're going to see them go after the oil refineries real hard. You're going to go after anything that keeps them propped up, ship manufacturing, things like that. They are going to try to blow that up in order to economically destroy the Islamic regime. So something to definitely keep an eye on. Now, on that note, we have footage here of more A-10 Warthogs taking off, bound for the Middle East. The A-10s have been putting in a ton of work. Now more A-10s are on the way as the war continues to rage at this hour. And CENTCOM releasing footage of the E-2 advanced Hawkeye right here. That is an early warning command and control aircraft that is particularly designed for aircraft carriers. So this is from one of the two aircraft carriers. I would assume it's probably, so it says from the Abraham Lincoln, which is in the target area, which is in the region, helping to coordinate these planes, soak up all that information on the battlefield, spit it back out to the planes that need it so they can go out and strike targets. It can track missiles. It can track naval movements. Incredible piece of military technology, and it is in the fight. Now, troops on the ground. Now, stick with me because we do have some comments from Caroline Levitt. Troops on the ground. We are now learning that thousands more from the 82nd Airborne Division, including elements of the 1st Brigade Combat Team and personnel specializing in logistics and communications, have arrived in the Middle East. So we have thousands of paratroopers that are now on the ground in the Middle East, ready to start conducting strikes, ready to start whatever could be coming with the ground operations. That they could parachute into Karg Island, they could parachute into Keshem, they could parachute into any of the islands in the Strait of Hormuz and on the coast. Why? So you can take that, hold that point, then land reinforcements and take away the Iranian regime's ability to terrorize ships in the Strait of Hormuz. So keep your eyes open for upcoming ground operations. It seems like at this point, it is guaranteed. Speaking of that, Iran's first vice president stated Trump can make the decision to send his troops to Karg Island, but the decision to bring them back is not in his hands. Incredibly foolish thing to say. Incredibly foolish thing to say. Taunting. Incredibly foolish thing to say.
What do you say? What do you say?
Incredibly foolish thing to say. Can make the decision to send his troops to Karg Island, but the decision to bring them back is not in his hands. Incredibly.
Iran's first vice president. Okay. Trump can make the decision to send his troops to Karg Island, but the decision to bring them back is not in his hands. You see? Yeah, he's right though. They're hey, look, listen, it's nothing wrong with this man responding, being strong. Okay, I mean, it's a man. This is a man. Most men don't roll over, right? Most. So I mean, I can understand where his aggression is coming from. But what I'm going to say is this. I'm going to say this. You got to be able to back up what you speak. Okay, that's what you have to do. You can't do all this nonsense and then start crying when Trump runs up in there and just go wreak total havoc on the place. So I mean, I'm just saying, the tough talk is cool, but if you want to do the tough talking, you got to make sure you back that up. If you can't back up the tough talking, fine, there's no problem. Then have a decent conversation. Learn how to have a conversation where both parties can be heard and we can figure it out. Violence should be the last form of communication that should be happening between both parties. That's when all fails. That's when, listen, bro, I done tried to talk to you. I done tried to, give you leniency, and nothing worked. So now we got to go about this in a different way. And here we are.
Foolish thing to say. Incredibly foolish thing to say. Taunting the 82nd Airborne and taunting the United States Marines. Probably the dumbest decision you could possibly make if you are the Iranian regime. Those young...
He ain't lying right there. He is not lying. I don't know what they... Sometimes, man, listen. Most of the times this happens, right? You all out of weaponry. You all out of... you losing. You all out of self-esteem. All you got is insults now. You ain't got no fight left in you. Let me tell you something. When people start spewing insults, because they ain't got no fight left in them. They ain't got no fight left in them. And that's all that they have right now. They can tell Trump, come on in, bring your soldiers in here. We got something for you. Well, if you got something for them, then why you telling them? Probably want to keep that to yourself. Well, we got intimidation factors. No problem. Then you got this guy right here. He's telling Trump can make the decision to send his troops to Karg Island, but the decision to bring them back is not in his hands. He ain't got no other cards but to sound tough. Be wary of the people sounding tough. That's the only card they got left. Yep.
Young men, those older men.
Trump gonna hold him to that though. Trump is gonna hold him to that. Yeah. Talking to the man that never sleep like that. He listening to you right now.
In the unit, they are going to show up looking for work. They're going to be hunting for work on target.
That's what I'm saying. You don't want to tell them, listen, man, listen, my guy. You don't want to tell them you ready for them. Why would you say that? That means they coming through the front door ready. You don't want to do that. You want your enemies to relax. You want to calm them down. You want to let them feel like everything's okay. All right? Then you find a moment to strike. And trust me, there will be a moment to strike because this is a small world. All you got to do is shut the hell up and don't let everybody know what you're doing. That's all you got to do. So, yeah, I think that was a dumb move. That was a real dumb move. Like, why would he even do that, man? Like, they about to invade the country. We about to run through the front door, and you about to let everybody know you about to run through the damn front door. You shouldn't even be talking to him. Shouldn't even be saying nothing to him. You ain't got no time to talk, buddy. Your whole country is getting leveled right now. And you still trying to play the goddamn the intimidation factor. What happens when intimidation don't work? Then what you got? See, when you're using these intimidation factors, you better make sure that they work. Because if they don't work, then you just looking crazy. You just looking crazy. Never lead with intimidation. Lead with purpose. All right, if you're going to do something, then just do it. You don't even got to talk about it. Because you might change your mind. You might not want to do it no more. Now you're looking stupid in front of everybody because you said this is what you was going to do. Nope. That's why it's better to just be quiet.
They are going to crush anyone they come up against, certainly when they take the island. Now,
man, when they when they roll up on that island, man, that's the last place you want to be when U.S. troops roll up on that island. It's the last place you want to be. Shit you not. I shit you not.
taking Karg Island, as I discussed before, and holding Karg Island are two very different things. Taking it's not the hard part. Holding it is essentially Iran will fire drones and missiles and all that stuff. That's where the situation could get quite dicey. Speaking of negotiations, how are they going? Well, according to the Iranian Foreign Ministry, they are claiming no negotiations are ongoing, which is why you see the escalation to de-escalate. Now, again, you can't trust these people as far as you can throw them. So take this worth a grain of salt. Of course, that should go without saying. But the Iranians are saying no negotiations are ongoing and the war will continue. The killing, the death will continue. So that is interesting. Now, Caroline Leavitt spoke about the status of the war. Let's go full screen here and let's watch what she had to say.
Industrial base with nearly 70% of their missile, drone, and naval production facilities and shipyards damaged or destroyed thus far, significantly reducing their ability to pose future threats in the region.
So 70% of the military targets that we have been looking for, according to Caroline Leavitt, have been destroyed. 70%. That still leaves 30% you got to get. That's still thousands of targets. I believe the target
30% is a lot. 30% is still a lot. That's still a lot of what ifs right there. And mind you, they jump on Karg Island, they start sending them drones. They got all that oil on there. That's going to be one big explosion. They might just go suicidal and just, this is, whoa. Yep. That's
list still is right around 3,500 targets that we have not hit yet.
Yo, shout out to Jake Claver, boy. I swear he kind of predicted this a little bit. If I'm not mistaken.
But are going to try to strike as the war continues. So as of me filming this, you have the United States that is just rocking Iran at this hour. Another senior Iranian leader has been killed, and thousands more U.S. ground troops are arriving in the region for what certainly appears to be imminent action on the ground in Iran. Right, so that is what we have at this moment as negotiations.
All right, we're gonna visit this. We're gonna hit this last video. We're gonna close out.
We can put sanctions.
So I understand exactly how
This is just the update. You know, we just want to see what people think about what's going on. There's a little treat right here, but we're gonna see. So a lot to unpack in this conversation between these two. A whole lot to unpack. So we're gonna try to unpack this slowly but surely. But after this video, we're gonna close out. I don't think I'm gonna play the whole thing, but we're gonna touch on some things here. Mm-hmm.
We're not losing.
We've killed children in Iran, and so now we're okay. I'm just giving you examples of while the president uses his strategy of suffer endlessly.
Not reasonable. This is not.
No, you're being unreasonable. People are dying in Cuba. I care about Cuban lives equally as I care about American lives. I think that they shouldn't be.
Well, that's the problem, man. We're gonna stop you right there. That's the problem right there. I mean, and I get what she's trying to say. I understand, but we got to look at this in the big picture, okay? You know, you might love your neighbors, but that don't mean that you love your neighbors just as much as you love your own family. No, I'm not going to accept that. But that don't mean that you don't love your neighbors. So one has to be prioritized over the other. And I'm sure if it came down to you and your neighbors, ma'am, you're going to choose your family. You're going to choose your home. Okay? Because it's your home. It makes sense. This is not a wrong thing. This is called self-preservation. This is just intelligent. Okay? So already we're walking into this subjectively. We're not even walking into this with a clear, rational mind. And this is why these situations are very important. They're very difficult for people to be in. Leadership is hard. One of the hardest things about leadership is making the tough decisions. Because everybody's not going to agree on the decisions you make. There's going to be backlash. There's going to be consequences. There's going to be uproar. So that's one of the points of contention with leadership, is making the hard, difficult decisions. Okay? Everybody's not going to agree on everything, so there will be pushback no matter what you do. Check. But what we see here is that she's not even, she doesn't know how to separate logic from how she feels about this. And I get it. No problem. This is a very touchy situation. Okay? But you have to take care of home first. And that's what she's not understanding.
That's
people who live there.
You're making a totally different argument.
No, you guys are complaining that people went over there to get.
American lives is what we care about.
And I care about Cuban lives too. People who are humans over there are dying because we cut off the energy.
You don't care about Russian lives?
Lord have mercy.
Or you don't care about, now you're just being so
What are you talking about? I'm talking about civilian lives.
And pathological anti-Trump hatred here.
No, I don't. People are.
Boy. So we got to talk about this very, very, very entertaining and fascinating foreign policy debate, discussion, argument between Ravi Swab and Lindsey Granger of The Hill. Okay, they are the co-hosts of the show Rising, and they're going to be talking about U.S. foreign policy, specifically towards Iran, Cuba, Venezuela. And Ravi Swab here, who's a libertarian, is going to go off on Lindsey Granger for essentially making every left-wing talking point in the book that is not grounded in any type of real logic, facts, reason, knowledge.
None. It's not logical. It's not logical. It's not rational. It's just how I feel rant. And I get it. This is why you got to let the professionals do this. Because this has nothing to do with how I feel. They need a method that's going to work. And truth be told, man, she doesn't even really feel this way. This is just the echo chamber, okay? Most blacks are Democrat voting, right? We all know that, okay? And when you see people that look like you that share a certain mindset, you're inclined to share that mindset too, because these are your people. So these are just echo chamber talking points. These are just, I heard everybody else say it, so it must be true, so I'm going to go ahead and repeat it. I've spoken to people one-on-one. I've spoken to people on the internet, telephone, and also face-to-face. And I'm going to tell you something. It's almost like all of them meet up every Wednesday. They all have the same talking points. I had to break down to a young lady the other day just how important it was for rich people to get tax cuts. It's like, and you know, like I said, I'm not the smartest person in the bunch. There's a very lot of intelligent people out here, but the fact I even had to explain that lets me know that we're not looking at this thing clearly or rationally. We're just looking at it based off how we feel and based off what people that look like us have said, the echo chamber. We're just echoing everything that we've heard. Anyway, let's continue.
But grounded more so in Trump derangement, okay? And he is going to lose it, right? Like literally snap on this woman. And I want to react to it because I found this conversation to be very entertaining. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Trying to stifle the country.
I said we should prevent it.
But why would we do that when people who were in these type of groups try to bring aid to people? The same reason why people were bringing aid in Gaza.
understand how
because people were dying.
Right.
Yes, I understand they were lifted off Russia recently. I understand that. I understand they were lifted off.
Lord have mercy. I'm not even gonna say that. I'm just gonna leave it alone. There's so much wrong with this.
Of Iran because the president wants to make his war make sense. So we took.
Yeah, sweetie, his war does make sense. His war does make sense. And she must not know about the ballistic program that they lied to us about. She must not know about that. Yeah, what we're doing right now is being proactive. Oh, my goodness. Okay. God bless her.
Sanctions off of our biggest enemy in Russia, and now we're putting sanctions on Cuba, which is not actively our biggest enemy. We just took sanctions off of Russia.
But we can put sanctions.
So I understand exactly how they work and how the president.
The sanctions, Russia hurt.
They only, from my understanding, they only took it off temporarily because the Strait of Hormuz was shut down. That's why they did that. Trump could have left it down and let everybody suffer, but he lifted the sanctions for a month so that Putin could, so we can keep the economy somewhat stable. That's why he did that. And this is what I'm saying. She doesn't know what she's talking about, but we're learning. We're all learning together.
Hurt all of Germany because hurt all of the Europe because they're providing gas to Germany and other countries there. That's what the pipeline was about. So there are larger geopolitical consequences to doing that we decided are not worth it. Cuba, we suffer very little doing this, and maybe we get a better regime. Maybe we won't, and maybe we shouldn't do it. Obviously,
The people suffer greatly,
Cuba
though.
for however many.
Yeah, the people do suffer greatly. That's the point of war. That's the point. Okay? That's the point.
Decades we did that did not result in the regime being overthrown. So I'm skeptical, I would say, but it's really no skin off our back. So
I know, but the people are suffering greatly there. And so
I mean,
Yeah. That's the whole point. That's the point of sanctions and war. That's the point.
that's kind of the point, right? That is the point that Robbie's making here, okay? What he's making is a very realist and practical viewpoint, right? It's a viewpoint that is not grounded in emotion, right? She's making a very emotional argument in the sense that she's saying, well, the sanctions hurt people. The people are
And you know what? It may be emotional. The word emotional has been thrown around. People hate it. It has a bad connotation that follows it. I think what it is that what word can we use outside of emotional? I guess it's not your feelings. Your feelings. Your feelings tend to kick in when you're seeing dead people and bombs dropping. As a human being, your feelings. This is why leadership is not for everybody. You got to be able to cut them feelings off to get the job done. There was this movie with Samuel L. Jackson. I forgot the name of the movie, man. Anyway, he was trying to find these bombs. He was trying to find these bombs in New York. Damn, I forgot the name of the movie. And the guy wouldn't talk. So he brought his wife in there. He tried to intimidate the guy. You know, he brought his wife in there hoping that, you know, if we threaten his wife, he'll talk. I don't think he did. I could be wrong. But anyway, so Samuel Jackson was like, okay, fine. He's not going to talk. Bring his kids in here. Now, mind you, everybody said, no, we're not doing that. We're not about to bring his kids in here so you can slaughter his kids. We're not going to put this man through this. Now, mind you, this man had set about 5 bombs in New York. He's about to level the place. Okay? And Samuel Jackson's perspective was, listen, let him just see me with the kids and he'll start talking. Okay? But they couldn't do it. So that those feelings pop in because you got 2 kids right here. You're like, oh man, we're not about to do this. And at that point, they're willing to let millions of people die to save a guy's kids that's blowing up the place. But then you have Samuel Jackson as logical. He's saying, listen, do you want to lose millions of people? Or should we use this guy's kids to get him to talk and tell us where the bombs are? Which one would you have done? See, and this is no joke. Like, and you have to be put in that position to be able to tell you what you'll do in that position. So, I mean, it's a complicated situation. This is why I tell you, leave this up to the professionals. But when you have these conversations, you can hear where people fall short when their feelings start going crazy. And it's fine. There's nothing wrong with your feelings. You're a human being. Everybody got them. But those feelings will get you and everybody else killed if you can't make sense of those feelings and start thinking rationally. Yep. If she was the president, we'd be in trouble. Because she would be too busy feeling, and she won't have the guts to do the hard jobs. She won't have the guts nor the courage to do the nasty job, the job that has to be done, the jobs that aren't said out loud. Those jobs. Shout out to our military, man. We have no idea what they go through.
Because of our sanctions.
We have no idea what they go through. None.
It's not right. Well, again, that is kind of the point of the sanctions. The sanctions, the point is to economically hurt the country that is being sanctioned to get them to capitulate with our demands, right? Yes, we know that the Cuban people are suffering partially, okay, because of the sanctions, but not completely because of the sanctions. The main reason they're suffering is because of communism. They've been dealing with blackouts and, shortages of supplies, energy, food. They was dealing with that before Trump's most recent sanctions, right? So
yes, and like I said, these people are communists. They're communists. So I mean, you probably want to. Man, I don't even know. I don't know how we got here. Yeah, but those people, they're communists. So it was a poor place before Trump even got involved. If anything, he's trying to make it better.
this is not new, okay? But yeah, we're putting more pressure on them because the whole point is to spark so much backlash against the government that the government gets overthrown, right? Or they capitulate to our demands before they get overthrown in order to save the government. Either way, the point is to economically punish a country until they capitulate to our demands. Now, this woman clearly does not understand the geopolitical reasons why we're lifting sanctions on other countries like Russia right now in this moment, okay, considering what is happening with Iran. She clearly doesn't understand it. She thinks that this is all random, that they're just doing it, you know, willy-nilly with no thought behind.
Yeah, well, that, like I said, that's projection. Like, I don't know why she would think that they're just... I told you it's a plan for everything. It all started with Venezuela. That's how they mapped it out. And you got these people thinking that they just making random decisions. You think that they just winging this war? They're not winging this war. Yo, they have top professionals on this. You understand what I'm saying?
Which, you know, it's just funny to me because that has been a common talking point from people on the left, is that they pretend to know what the Trump administration is thinking when it comes to this military.
And then on the other end say that nobody knows what they're doing. I'm telling you.
Military operation in Iran, right? They seem to believe that the administration has no plan when I think it's pretty obvious that they have a plan if you actually pay.
Pretty damn obvious to me. I've been talking about it all month. I don't know how nobody. It's definitely a plan. Man. I'm not going to repeat it. I've been repeating it all month. I don't want to come off redundant, but yes, they definitely have a plan. Definitely have a plan. If you following this, you can definitely see the plan.
Attention to what's happening, okay? The reason why we have lifted some sanctions on Russia is because as of right now, we want more supply of oil going to our allies, right? We don't want to be sanctioning oil.
You see that?
Right now, because that puts pressure on the price.
That's what I said. He only lifted up the sanctions on Russia so that people can get their oil, man. That's it. And it was only for a month. And you got this man looking out for everybody. And she's sitting over here. She's sitting over this joint just confused, not really understanding the play. Trump ain't playing no games. Trump became the play. Yep, he's the play.
As supplies being disrupted because of the current situation with the Strait of Hormuz, right? So right now what we want to do is that we want to get oil to our allies, okay? And the most efficient way to do that is to unsanction the oil that is already out in the ocean. that helps keep the price in check as we continue this military operation. Because to be honest, Trump's biggest enemy right now is the global price of oil, right? What happens to global prices? If global prices get out of control, that is probably the most efficient way for the president to be undermined. And also at this point, Iran, they want higher prices for that reason, and also because they make more money, right, selling oil to China. So, this is why I personally believe that the move that the Trump administration ultimately is going to make, regardless of the noise that you hear on a day-to-day basis, that I think they're going to take Kharg Island, right? And the reason why is because that would essentially solve all of our issues with Iran in one swoop, right? 90% of their oil exports go through there, right? So we control 90% of their exports.
Boy, they take over Kharg Island. That'll be a masterful move. Masterful. Wow.
It's game over for them, right? It's game over. Like
it's already game over. They just don't know it yet.
The war effectively ends. Okay, the question is not going to be what Iran is going to do. There's not really much they can do about it. It's about what China's going to do. Okay, that is
exactly
the real question, right? So the point of putting sanctions on Cuba is because we're trying to topple the Cuban government now, right? And the point of taking sanctions off of Russia is because we need to make sure that global oil prices don't get out of control, right? That is the point, okay? Which she clearly doesn't understand because her brain right, is not developed enough to understand these concepts.
I don't think that is the right move, especially with no plan.
Well,
the president has a consistent history. The president has a consistent history. The president has a consistent
history. The people
history.
suffer in Russia. They suffer in North Korea. Whenever we put sanctions, the people suffer.
Russia is a very powerful country. People are not without lights and basic needs right now because of anything that the U.S. has done.
Sanctions raise the prices for people internally.
People in Cuba have no electricity. They cannot go to the hospital to get basic procedures.
So sanctions are
so I'm asking you.
But this is what the goal of sanctions is to lower the standard of living.
The president never explained to Congress that he wanted to put sanctions on Cuba
reform
because he went to Venezuela.
It's just effective this time.
Okay. And people who are in humanitarian groups go to countries to help save lives, as they did in Gaza. Because the people who live there actually need help.
We shouldn't bother doing the sanctions in the first place.
No, the president shouldn't bother getting involved in international conflicts with no plan that's thoroughly thought through. And so this is the exact...
I just love how these are the same talking points. Like, these are BS now talking points. The president doesn't have a plan. The president doesn't have a plan. These people don't know, right? You don't know, right? They don't know. They keep saying that the president doesn't have a plan. And I'm like... Clearly, he had a plan with Venezuela, and that plan worked. Clearly, he had a plan with Cuba, and that plan is currently working, right? I think he has a plan with Iran. I think he has a plan with all this stuff. I think these people are really underestimating the president and his ability to conduct these foreign operations. I really do. Again, this talking point that the president has no plan it's just crazy to me.
But I keep explaining to you what the plan is.
The plan is just to make them suffer and then make them cower to us, which they have shown no intention on doing.
Then suffer a little bit more.
Okay, and then what?
Right? Right? I mean, I know it sounds messed up. But that's some real stuff, right?
All right, so we're going to close out with this. But, yeah, this was... I'm going to come back and revisit this debate because I've already been on here for an hour and 34 minutes. But this is... man, I wish I could play the whole thing, but I gotta run. But with that being said, we are... Oh, yeah? What? That's crazy. All right, cool. Yeah, so with that being said, we're going to go head out, and we will continue this conversation later. Yes, sir.